Hello again. Again, as if you're not watching this a second later. Anyway, I wanted to go over the question sets real quick. I didn't get to read a lot of your answers because I'm making this before the deadline for handing them in. But I think it's important that we, go over them a little bit beforehand. Usually, I'd like to pay reference more to your specific answers, but for now, I think that we should do it this way. So I'm going to give very brief answers for now, and then hopefully more specific answers with each of your question sets. Which, if you don't mind, it would be very helpful if you could just, some of you did this, post them in the email rather than as an attachment. That makes it easier for me to send you comments back. Okay, so Plato and Descartes tell us that we should mistrust our everyday understanding of what is real. Plato imagines that we are locked in a cave. Descartes believes that our mind is completely divorced from our bodies, and so the world. If we take away our senses as a means of knowledge, what is left for Descartes and Plato? How do their answers differ? Well, the interesting thing about this question is that there is not a complete mistrust of the senses. So I kind of lied in the question, but I wanted to kind of set out the starkness of the question. Both Descartes and Plato give more credit to ideas, reason, rationality than they do our senses. They say that our senses consistently deceive us, right? In Plato's case, we're looking at a puppet show of what we think reality is, and really we're chained deep in a cave of ignorance, right? If we only think what is real is the things that are passing right in front of us at all times, right? The changing world, then we're going to be in trouble. Both Descartes and Plato believe that we have some other knowledge that comes before knowledge of our senses. So, for example, with Plato, we're going to see that he believes that, excuse me, mathematics, for instance, is going to be something that we just know without senses. For example, how do you know that a square has 4 sides? Is it something that you had to confirm? Is it something that you learn empirically? Or is it part of the definition of what the thing is? Wow, I'm not watching myself, so I probably just got really close to you. Woo. Descartes, on the other hand, wants to say something similar. He wants to say there's certain knowledge that's a priori, a word that you're going to have to get used to. A priori meaning before any experience. I think geometry is a perfect one, right? Triangles have 3 sides. A right triangle's sides are going to be equal to the square of the hypotenuse is going to be equal to the square of the other 2 sides, that sort of thing. So these things are known a priori. This is very important when we get to Hume because the argument between the Platos and Descartes of the world and the Locke's and Berkeleys of the world are going to be discussed by Hume when we get to him. Okay? Next we have Russell. The short scene from Alice in Wonderland. As you know, probably you can't have a philosophy class without saying, I think, therefore I am. The brief scene from Alice in Wonderland is supposed to make you think that even if you have what you feel like is awareness, that doesn't mean that you exist necessarily. What if, and this is one of those wonderful philosophical what ifs, if you're just part of someone's dream and your sense of existence is really just based or dependent, I think as Kristen said, dependent on the dreamer to have existence. In that case, someone like Descartes, who believes that he has dug down to the deepest possible answers to this question, really hasn't dug far enough. I asked if a computer simulated character exists, someone that can learn, somebody that this is a question of AI, a self-aware robot. Do they exist because they can think in some sort of classic sense? That's a really interesting question. Finally, 3 we have Russell, meaning the difference between appearance and reality. This should be pretty clear for you, but I think that it leads to some pretty fundamentally strange circumstances. Namely that I'm looking at my strange, I would show it to you, but I'm not sure I can get that technologically advanced. The cabinet that I keep my records in, right? I'm looking at it right now, and I'm seeing one perspective of it. And if I looked at it and I thought, that is the strangest shaped box I've ever seen. Why? Because I'm only seeing one side of it, and it goes off. And if I were to use just my perspective, it would appear to me like a box that had no back. It would appear to me the strangest, most odd postmodern architecture that I've ever seen. But what Russell wants to say is that we're also aware of the reality of the situation, that there's more to it. We maybe imagine the rest. We maybe have an idea about what's going on for the rest of it. I'm a little skeptical that you can necessarily split the world into those two categories. I think it's only through appearance that we can understand reality, and only through reality that we can understand appearance. I actually think that they're kind of bound together that way. If that makes any sense. In other words, I'm aware when I'm looking at that box that it's not just that box. Why do I know that? Well, because I've touched it, I've seen it, I've been around it, I've moved it way too many times, it's heavy, So through a lot of different appearances, I'm getting an idea of the reality, right? And its reality is what is responsible for the appearances, if that makes any sense. It may not. Again, Robitussin. Okay. Both Locke and Berkeley seem to fundamentally disagree with Descartes and Plato. Not quite true, again. So the seem word is important. But it seems to me that Locke and Bishop Berkeley, are trying to make the case that sense data is what's important. Okay? So even in the case about Abe Lincoln and atomic number question, that without some sort of sense data, especially in the case of Abe Lincoln, we would never be able to call something knowledge. Somebody had to witness Abe Lincoln being shot by John Wilkes Booth, or have some evidence, which is sensual evidence, to believe that. So in some ways, it's not that simple that the atomic number question from the helium thing is so out there, right? Because while there wasn't any kind of visual confirmation that about the structure of helium, right? There were many experiments that showed that helium was different from hydrogen in important ways. So if we say that empirical knowledge can only be that which is from the five senses, no, it's true. I can't touch the structure of helium. Is that true? I can't touch the structure. Maybe I am whenever I touch helium, but I can't know the structure of helium by touching. How's that? But at the very least, some empirical data is important for me to answer these questions. Question number 5, we have Lorraine Code. Her question has to do with who is doing the knowing. Now that's a strange way of talking, but in this sense, it's important that knowledge is not completely devoid of certain biases of being somebody, right? Her perspective is coming from the feminist ideal, which is that basically that women might have a different idea of knowledge or might experience the world differently, and so count as having different sorts of knowledge. Or it might be as simple as saying something like who the knower is, their biases, the things that their prejudices. If you think about 12 Angry Men, which you should have read by or seen by this point, think about the way that their understanding of the world affects the way that they know the world. They know that the defendant is guilty based on things like racial prejudice. They know based on certain things like, I want to get out of here, so it seemed pretty open and shut to me, a lack of carefulness. There's a lot of different aspects of what the knower is like in order to know what is known. So that's something that is very interesting, because someone like Russell and Plato and Descartes, and maybe even all the other guys, are going to say something like, no, even if we're looking at the five senses, everybody's five senses works the same and should come to the same conclusion. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I want you to think about it. Anyway, finally, as I said, hold on a second. I'm going to continue this one just for a brief one, because last time I got to 10 minutes is where I swore like a sailor and almost sent it to you. So I'm going to stop recording for now. I'm going to do the Wittgenstein one at the beginning of the next one and give you a quick overview. All right, over and out.